This is Francesco Abbruzzino with the Scoop National News, and what I'm going to try is we're going to try it just a couple times, see how it takes, see what the overall view or reach is on it. This will be essentially just a summary of what kind of news is out there on the national page. Some people like to go through, they'll read it a lot. There's so much information coming out. Some people would rather just listen to a 5 or 10 minute video summarizing everything that's on there. So I thought, hey, let's give it a shot and see what the people think of it. So we're going to go ahead and make a switch over to it and see what your thoughts are. All right, first we have, this is the Scoop, nationalnews.com. The story I just put up, it says 8 minutes ago, and this is on a Wyoming woman who's died after being bitten by a bat. She died from rabies, contracted rabies. A pretty interesting story. It does happen, unfortunately. The next one, Forest Service discrimination prompts tracking of the stops, and I guess there's some people that are saying that it was more discriminatory after a person ran into an embarrassing episode back in 2011. So they've adopted a new policy on how they'll racially target individuals that they're pulling over and stopping. Interesting article here from Vice, and it's just basically on how fewer people may be living in poverty, but the world's people are still essentially screwed over. And it covers just how the World Bank announced how there's a mere 702 million people that are basically living in poverty. And although that seems like a large number, they basically point out that it's only 9.2% of the population. And the story goes into more detail on that. The concern with the poverty, and you haven't seen poverty until you've gone to some of these third world countries like I have, and you realize that the extraordinary levels of which poverty can go to. This is Rob O'Neill. He's the SEAL Team 6 individual that is credited with killing bin Laden, and now ISIS has put out a fatwa, I guess if you want, and essentially said, hey, we want this guy dead, and they're trying to get people to go after them and kill O'Neill. O'Neill's basically come out and said, hey, come after me. I'm here. I can take care of myself. I'm all ready to go. Another interesting story was just the concern that Islamic State has, ISIL, IS, about the exodus of their skilled workers. They're seeing a lot of their skilled workers that are now leaving, which is concerning them. I'm not sure if they're leaving because the area where a lot of them are at in Syria, they're having a lot of communications that are come out stating that many people are taking off or giving up or throwing up their arms ever since Russia started their bombing. Now, some of that, or much of that, comes from papers like Sputnik or RT, which are Russian-based TV, and it's all major propaganda war. It was funny, I was listening to some, I think it was NBC or something like that, and the guy came out and said, well, Russia's over there and they're essentially propping up Assad with what they're doing while the U.S. tries to fight ISIS. And I thought, Jesus, have you ever seen so much propaganda? And this was coming from NBC. And, you know, it's amazing. Now, do they want to prop up Assad? Of course. They've always been upfront about that. Iran, Russia, they're all over there trying to prop up Assad. Do they want to fight ISIS? Sure, because they have problems with ISIS and their own terrorist organizations over in Russia. Now, the United States, you got to be crazy if you just don't understand the facts that the United States is out there, and many liberal stations are saying this. This isn't just Frank here. You got liberal people on the left and right saying that the United States is out there. They've been propping up the moderate rebels in Syria. There are no moderate rebels. You know, the Fars, the Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, ISIS, they're all extremist groups. So we've been essentially out there funding them in their struggle to overthrow Assad. But now we got to go in and put off this perception that we're trying to do something to get rid of ISIS. But if we do, we're in turn helping Assad. So the U.S. is in a difficult situation. But they should have never been in this situation. This next article just covers California fair pay out of the Washington Times. How many people are exiting the state business-wise because they just can't afford some of these new laws that are being put in place. Where you have to pay essentially minimum wage of $15 an hour and some of the other stuff that they're adding into there with the Governor Brown. Look, do I think there should be higher pay? Yeah. Do I think business can afford it? No, unfortunately you can't. Unfortunately, when you raise that minimum wage, you're going to lose people. You can't afford to keep the same amount on. It's pretty damn hard for an organization like a Pizza Hut or McDonald's to go on and pay $15 an hour unless they raise their prices, which the consumers won't accept, or they get rid of people and say, well, we got to do with X amount of people. Next story just is out of the Daily Caller, which is a right-leaning organization, and they talk about providing citizenship tests to the Spanish and people that are essentially the illegal immigrants, and they want to do flashcards that are in Spanish to help them get through the test. And some of the concerns that they have with that, Russia has started launching warship rockets or rockets from the warships on the Islamic State, and that article covered that there. The violence continues over in Israel with the Palestinians, with 2 more stabbings in the streets, and they're starting to have an uptick in some of the issues that are going on there between the Israeli government and the Palestinians. Let's see. Syrian rebels face coordinated ground attacks and Russian airstrikes because, as you know, if you watched yesterday, the Russians have brought in more troops. They're supplying more arms on the ground. There's talk today that Syria's Assad is going to have more of his army move in, I think, on Hamad now, because they now have that flexibility with the Russians bombing from the ships and the planes. Let's see. Some thousands of federal inmates scheduled for early release. I think it's about 6,000. I believe they said about a third are illegal aliens, which they will give to immigration. ICE will decide if they ship them back or whatever actions they take. The remaining are individuals that were caught up in some pretty harsh penalties or jail time laws that were passed back in the 80s when the war on the drugs began. And I don't know if you saw the documentary on Vice where President Obama was on there talking to some of the individuals, and it was pretty interesting how they were told, hey, look, you're out there, you got busted with drugs or selling drugs or taking drugs or doing whatever action you had with the drugs. They had to essentially plea out to 15 years, 30 years, 10, 5 years, or risk going and spending a life in prison. So automatically, I think the number was somewhere around 80% of them are just pleading out. And some of them, they had this one guy on there. He went ahead and pled out. I believe it was 15 years. And all the information was about sales of drugs that were made while he was in prison he couldn't have made. He's like, it's impossible. I wasn't there. I was sitting here in prison. But he could go and risk losing that battle and face life in, behind bars, or just say forget it and just take 15. He opted out and said, I'll just take 15, as so many of them do. This is an individual. He was Johnny Hinakapi, who claims he was wrongly convicted in 1990 subway killing. Well, he was finally freed after 25 years. Doctors Without Borders are saying everybody knew we were there. It was not a big surprise. It was not a mystery. Why were we being bombed? Some of them are associating it with the passage of TPP, which has some restrictions on the medical arena. I don't know what the story is there. But, and then the United States is changing their story. They're saying, we didn't know about it. Afghan called it. Hey, we just screwed up. And the story goes on. And I'm sure that's going to get bigger and bigger. Some are calling for war crimes because it is a war crime to bomb a hospital. It's insanity. You got this $1 billion city with no residents. I believe it's in New Mexico. A lot of questions surrounding why is that there. We got the story on 3 chemistry Nobel Prize winners. FBI uncovers a red state sex dungeon ring, which is a good thing. That's an interesting story that was put out by the Daily Beast. They're left-leaning. I tried, hopefully the people that come to my sites, I tend to put the magazine up there so you can tell if you want to read it. Slate, Mother Jones, Huffington Post, left-leaning, InfoWars, right-leaning, the Daily Caller, right-leaning. And so people can decide, because believe it or not, I'm someone that likes to read it all, but a lot of individuals will go out there, they'll see something that's left-leaning, and they're not even going to touch it. This is China's dumping a bunch of the U.S. government debt, which should be concerning, but most people, as you can see, only a reach of 762 people, just aren't concerned about it. And that's a relatively low reach. When did I put it out? 2 hours ago? That should have been up around 2,000 to 3,000 by now. Generally, a story, it depends. I have stories that get 40, 50,000 reach, some that get low reaches like this, and it's amazing the financial impact that this could have on our society, on America, on the global economy, yet nobody's really interested, and I'm not sure why. This is another one about a passenger. This passenger decided to hide 10 pounds of cocaine, 88 oxy pills in his check-on luggage. Smart individual, Iran. They decided to ban negotiations with the United States. Amazing. This was interesting on drones because I do have a local guy that sends me a lot of drone footage, but drones is becoming an issue. And this guy shot down a drone that was hovering over his wife and checking her out. Apparently, he didn't like that. Squeeze play. You gotta love some of these titles. He's got papers put on. A cop saved shop owner after he's attacked by a 20-foot python. This is a child ISIS jihad as he taunts the dogs of Rome. Basically saying, Obama, come after me if you dare. Obamacare, Medicaid expansion, how it's helping many of the uninsured. I think it's 8.5 million less people are now insured versus being non-insured thanks to Obamacare. But what's it doing? Most of them are going on the Medicaid payrolls, and how it's impacting that. This is from the Post, so I'm sure they're saying it's great, and they're not really hitting on any of the negative issues that come with putting so many people on Medicaid. And I think it also touches on the states that aren't participating, like Florida. Many of them aren't participating because they're concerned after, I think it's a 3-year period where the government won't subsidize anymore, what's going to happen with the rates, and the states are going to get stuck to it, and they're afraid that once you're in it, you're screwed, especially if there's no more subsidies. This talked about efforts to discredit the EPA, it says the Dem efforts to discredit EPA critics. I was going to say Dems discredit EPA. This was put out by the Free Beacon, which is right-leaning. This is interesting because you see this a lot, and it just drives me crazy how at a city council meeting, a guy went over his 3 minutes. God forbid, he went over his 3 minutes, and the council, the omniscient council, they sit up there and they, for some reason, when they get behind that little council desk and they're all sitting there elevated above the people that are speaking, they feel all powerful, and they had this guy arrested. One reason I don't go to council meetings anymore, I watch it online because it's so annoying how this surge of power goes to their head when they're sitting behind that desk. TPP and the impacts on the beef industry, how the world and humans are killing off pristine places, PC control. I put this up because there was you can read this one in, actually let me switch screens because we're almost done after that one. I put that up because I put up yesterday how local high school took away flags, and somebody sent me some of the pictures of the administrator's office, and because they could be used as a weapon. I came out and said, hey, I put somebody else's quote up there saying a crutch could be used as a weapon. This pen could be used as a weapon. What can't be used as a weapon? My paper holder could be used as a weapon. And my concern is that this was just another way for the school to come in and basically enforce an anti-Americanism. You know, a lot of people, the schools you'll see, they won't let kids wear these American flags on their shirts, but they'll go ahead and allow them to wear, Mexican flag shirts to school. And it's just, it's insane. You know, as someone said, well, maybe it's a good thing and you should respect the flag and you don't want a kid dragging it. Nobody said the kid was dragging it. And I've seen many kids that respect flags better than adults do. My biggest concern is that they deemed this to be a weapon just so that the kid was not able to carry it around on American Flag Day, which is part of this whole week-long thing where they have different spirit days as they lead up to homecoming, which is Saturday, and their homecoming game, I think, is Friday. So I thought it was interesting. I put it up there. Unfortunately, I did not contact the school board because the reason I have is I've contacted Scott Ferguson, the local school board person, on many issues. He never gets back to me. It amazes me that these politicians don't understand that if they get back and have some transparency, it works better for them. He could have gotten back to me on many issues and said, well, no, Frank, this is the case, and I'll put it up there. I'll put up word for word what they're saying, why this individual that is saying concerned about the weapons being, the flag being a weapon, why they may be inaccurate. I'll put it up there word for word. But when they don't respond back to you, guess what? I'm just going to put up one side of the story, and that one side of the story looks bad for Northport High. Okay, let me know what you think of this. Go ahead and put comments underneath. I'm going to put it on the national page. I might start doing it for the local page. We're going to see how it takes off. Usually I'll do a few of these. I'll just get a feel. I'll see how many people are clicking on it, what the reach is, and what the overall take is on something like this. So everybody have a great day for the Scoop National News. This is Francesco Abbruzzino, and I'll talk to you later.